The Free Agents podcast contains mature themes and adult language. Any discussion of gambling is for entertainment purposes only. Please abide by all laws in your location regarding gambling.
This should be our intro. Can we start?
This week on The Free Agents.
Is David Ortiz a Hall of Famer? He's going to win the World Series MVP, especially if they win tonight. He's definitely going to wrap that up.
Yep.
He's been clutch in a lot of games for the Red Sox, just regular season games.
And the newest free agent to our team, Chris Curtis of the Michigan Sports Beat. Chris, how are you today?
Doing pretty good. Thanks for having me, guys. The Lakers, I mean, if they continue what they did last night with their second team, and if they can get their first team rolling, I mean, Lakers could be back.
Welcome to the Free Agent Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Smargy. Joining us this week in studio, John Boudreau. How are you doing today, LJ?
I am good. Can't complain.
And also joining us via Skype this week, the newest free agent to our team, Chris Curtis of the Michigan Sports Beat. Chris, how are you today?
Doing pretty good. Thanks for having me, guys.
No problem. It's our honor to have you here. So we got a lot to talk about this week. We've had all kinds of NFL action, obviously. We've got the World Series going on.
Yep.
Well, let's talk about Dallas. Let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys.
All right.
And Des Bryant and the misery that is that petulant child. When it takes your biggest, strongest defensive player, DeMarcus Ware, to grab him by his collar and say, "Shut the F up." That's basically what he had to do, was just like, dude, shut up.
Can't really do anything but agree with that. I mean, Jason Witten's just talking to him, trying to calm him down, saying, "Hey, we still have a shot at this. You know, get your helmet on, let's go." And he was inconsolable for a good 30 seconds there on the sideline.
Oh, they said it was about 20 minutes. It was revealed by people that were seated in that general vicinity that Des Bryant was just going on for 20 minutes. That literally he's lucky. I'm serious. I swear, DeMarcus Ware would have committed a felony if he had kept going. You don't piss off DeMarcus Ware. That's your biggest, strongest, toughest guy on your team, I'm guessing, on the Dallas Cowboys. If there was going to be a fight with the Cowboys, you'd want DeMarcus Ware on your side.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and I think Witten is about 10 seconds from knocking him out, too. It's pretty interesting to watch. I mean, they had the camera trained on him for about 30 seconds, and, you know, obviously there's more to that, and there's probably more in the locker room afterwards. Apparently, both Des Bryant and Jason Witten wanted to talk to Jason Garrett separately after the loss and before they got on the team plane headed back to Dallas.
You have like two kids trying to tell on each other before Dad gets
essentially
home.
That's exactly what it was.
Before they get home in front of Jerry Jones and he yells at both of them.
That's exactly what it was.
And then on the other side of the ball, you had your classy Detroit Lions. And who could really say that about the Lions with a Schwartz-led Lions team?
Well, I mean, you take a look at the big cog in the machine, of course, was Calvin Johnson. You take a look at his day, 329, had a score, 329 yards, second to only Flipper Anderson for the all-time mark in a receiving game. You take a look at it, and if Des wants an example of how to conduct himself on the field, take a look at what Calvin does on a daily basis. He goes about his business, he does his job, and he works during the week in practice. It's not that hard of a concept to do the right thing when it comes to football.
Yeah, you literally, yes, take the example from that guy. Because he's a lone wolf. He's a guy that, all the articles I read about him, he's quiet, he's reserved, he stays to himself. He's not the guy that goes out to the strip clubs or goes out clubbing or does any of that stuff. He's kind of a Zen football player. He's like a different animal.
Absolutely. I mean, and from everything, in the radio and the TV, when they do interviews with him, he's a very personable guy. He's not like you say, he's not out there. He doesn't have the drive to just do things just because he can. He goes out there, he performs his job every single week, and he's missed one game in the entire time he's been a Lion. I can't really complain about the durability of him either. He does his work and he goes about his business. That's all there is to it.
And he's on my fantasy team, and I'm forever grateful for drafting him.
Yeah, especially after this week.
Oh, love it. Love everything about him. And the Lions are off this week, so let's go back to the Cowboys. They're playing Minnesota this week. And this is like having a bye week. Minnesota's coming to Dallas. They can right the ship, I'm guessing.
They can try. I mean, everything in Minnesota is everyone in Minnesota is basically just planning on them blowing up the team this season. They're thinking Leslie Frazier and both of the coordinators are gone. So basically they're just biding their time, trying to find the right time to make the move to start blowing it up and starting anew. It remains to be seen how long Adrian Peterson remains a Viking.
Well, it's a shame, too, because Minnesota really, if you were to take a quarterback, I don't know with that defense now revealing itself as being bad, but before the defense revealed itself as bad, I was saying that this was a place where, everybody jokes around. Roethlisberger could get traded by the Steelers and they could blow it up. And sending him to Minnesota would have been a real option with Greg Jennings and Kyle Rudolph and Adrian Peterson. That's an offense that Roethlisberger, and Cordell Patterson. That's an offense that Roethlisberger could take advantage of, unlike some of the guys that are there now. I mean, the disaster that's Matt Castle. When Christian Ponder got drafted, I was like, really? This is not a guy that's any good. He's just not an NFL quarterback.
Well, even when he was drafted, it's easy to see that the Vikings were reaching in that pick. I believe they took him 7th in that year, and they really should have just waited. They could have gone with, I believe they had still Tavares Jackson at that point, waited it out a year because they had the decent quarterback talent coming in the next year's draft. I can't remember exactly who it was that was coming out, but you had a chance to wait, and they definitely reached in going for Christian Ponder. And now you're paying three starting quarterback salaries per se on 3 quarterbacks that really shouldn't be starters.
Man, and there's so many people out of work, and Josh Freeman's making $11 million this year.
Exactly
$11 million. I can't get over that this year. So what else stood out for you this week? We had Cincinnati shellac the Jets, and the Jets had shown to be a team that could beat contenders. And Cincinnati just beat the ever-loving crap out of them.
I think the Jets were just playing out of their minds for the most part. Geno Smith came in and, acted like a savior for 2 weeks, and the Jets were just really exposed this week, to take the 4 touchdowns by, who was that Bengals
Marvin
receiver?
Jones.
That's the guy. Yep. Yeah. Andy Dalton found him all day. Just exposed that. Exactly.
Some guy? Yeah.
Yeah.
They made the joke.
And then there's who? Right. So it's really funny to me, and it makes me happy because I'm not necessarily a Jets fan. But it makes me happy to see.
It begs the question. Cincinnati's traveling to Miami this week. Miami played good. I think the referees really screwed him in that Pats game. Let's be honest now. If that was not a guy punching the football to make it go away. That was a guy reaching for the ball, and the ball got knocked back. And they hit him with a penalty that totally reversed the whole, I guess you'd say, momentum of the game.
I can agree with that to a point, but you got to look at it in that game, the Pats and Dolphins. I mean, it was a tale of 2 halves, really. The Pats didn't look good in the first half at all, and they went down quick 14-0. And then Tom Brady does what Tom Brady does, and the fumble, the push ahead was a circumstance. But I don't think it was the main turning point of that game. I think just Tom Brady being Tom Brady and Bill Belichick being Bill Belichick is what got them to right the ship and end up winning that game.
Brady wasn't even Brady. I mean, Tannehill threw for 192 yards and 2 touchdowns. That was a better day than what Brady had. Brady was 13 of 22 with a touchdown and an INT, and he ran that, and then he had that sneak. I mean, really, that was penalties. If you look at the penalty yards in that game, the every time there was a game-changing penalty in that game, it went against Miami. The Patriot fans should not be comfortable with the way the Patriots. They're a very soft 6-2.
I agree with you to that. I think the Patriots definitely did not play their best game, and I think I don't want to say they were exposed because I don't think that's right. I think there were some things that needed to be worked on, and knowing Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, they're going to get those kinks worked out. I think they'll be fine this week.
Now, they're playing Pittsburgh this week. Yeah. And my Steelers, they did their yearly lose to Oakland in Oakland game. I swear, every year, even when they're good, they go to Oakland, they seem to get beat. I don't know if they party too hard when they go to Oakland. I don't know what happens. But something goes wrong when the Steelers travel to Oakland. And Terrell Pryor all of a sudden looks like he's a legit NFL starter.
a 93-yard touchdown run by your quarterback is not necessarily how you want to get things done, though. So, Oakland's kind of a wild card in this, saying there's another team with a possible quarterback situation. I don't think Terrell Pryor is the answer in Oakland, but that it is what it is. I think he'll get the chance and to prove that he's not the starter, and then they'll probably go into the draft and try to look for a quarterback as well.
Well, they're not going to have the best pick, but there are a lot of quarterbacks coming out. A ton of them, they're saying. Yep. That all could be legitimate starters. None of them have that Andrew Luck. None of them are going to be as good as Andrew Luck. They all fall below his talent level, but there's a lot of them that fall right below that talent level. So you'll see a lot of these teams taking chances on quarterbacks, but Terrell Pryor's had time to learn, and he's starting to show that he can actually play the game.
Yeah. I can't really complain with what he did to the Steelers, though. So we'll see.
Then you had Cleveland with Jason Campbell.
Oh man, I thought Jason Campbell was done. I thought we had seen the last of him. 2 years ago now, or however long? I mean, oh God, it's awful.
Yeah, but I tell you what, though, given the options Cleveland has, they've got Campbell and they've got Wheaton.
No, it was their best choice. Brett Favre is not coming out of retirement, guys.
Especially not to play for the Browns.
Neither is J.P. Losman or any litany of washed out quarterbacks.
I'd have taken Scott Mitchell at that point.
Yeah.
Well, Campbell showed that he could still play. I mean, this was against the Chiefs defense that's really good.
Yeah, and the Chiefs really did escape from that game. I think that the thing is they may be 8-0, but I really don't think they're the best team in the league. I think Denver's got that spot. They did lose a game, the Denver Broncos did, but I mean, there's been multiple games on Kansas City's side that have been down to a single score.
Yeah, I mean, Kansas City's offense is not going to win them games.
Right, it'll be on the defense.
It's on the defense to really, truly step up and do it. I just think Denver, I mean, they're playing Kansas City twice in the second half of the season after their bye week.
Right.
And that's, then they have to go to New England. This is Denver. And then they have Houston. We don't know what they're going to be like. They have San Diego twice. And San Diego showed that they could play some football this year. And Tennessee's no slouch. They have a very difficult schedule in the second half of the season.
And those Kansas City games that you're talking about, I believe those happen within a few weeks of each other. I think it's twice within 3 weeks or 4 weeks.
They literally go at San Diego, home for KC, at New England, at Kansas City.
Yep.
That's a tough stretch right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is a brutal 4 weeks.
And Peyton Manning has 2 high ankle sprains. That's why I just traded him in my fantasy football league. And that's why I traded him. I looked at that second half schedule. I looked at week 16 going to Houston against J.J. Watt with 2 bum ankles. And I looked and I did not like what I saw. I said, all right, it's time to trade him. I got Tony Romo riding pine. So I was able to grab A.J. Green. And I was able to grab that linebacker league since we have an individual defensive player league. So I was able to get a good 2-for-1 for Peyton Manning. So I sold high and I took advantage of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm going to reveal my sleeper pick for if you're in a fantasy league right now and you look like a lock for the playoffs, go and drop your backup kicker, whoever your backup tight end, you don't need him anymore, and just grab Jake Locker because Jake Locker plays Jacksonville in week 16.
Oh.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Plain and simple. Go
and
get
Jake
yourself.
Locker is going to be available in basically
every
75 to 80%.
Unless you're playing in a 2-quarterback league, and even then I was able to get him in my 2-quarterback league. Get him. Get him where you can get him and just leave him there. Just leave him.
Yep.
And he will come through for you in week 16 during the playoffs.
Yeah, when rosters are thin, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Aaron Rodgers in week 16, he is playing Pittsburgh.
Yep.
And Matt Stafford in week 16 is actually playing the Giants, so he's another one you're going to want to hang on to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Romo in week 16 is playing the Redskins, so I'm going to have a decision to make on my team. Eli's playing Detroit. I mean, you look at if you're in a situation where basically I had Manning, it was time to sell. I thought
it wasn't a bad move. I mean, especially with who you got for him, and especially the 2 bum ankles. I have Manning on my fantasy team. I'm not taking him anywhere. My backup's Carson Palmer. So if I need to go to a backup, I'm not really excited about the possibility of going to Carson Palmer if Peyton gets injured for whatever reason, but he's there. And like you say, I mean, if it comes week 16, Jake Locker's still available in my league. So there's that.
That's my money league, and in that league, I also have Calvin Johnson.
Yeah.
And Jordy Nelson.
Good pickups there.
Yeah,
sure.
and I have Jamal Charles. So I'm looking like immensely strong. And for individual defensive players, I've got Von Miller, who came back 15 pounds heavier from a suspension for steroids. And it wasn't because he was sitting there eating donuts all the time.
He did not look pudgy. He looked ripped.
He looked mean.
Yeah.
He came back looking like Triple H did after or The Rock does when he's going for a movie. He came back looking jacked.
Yep.
And he basically did steroids again. And they just welcomed him back, and nobody said anything. Nobody in the national media said, well, Von Miller just came back from steroids, and, well, he put on 15 pounds of muscle. He looks great. No, he looks like he just did steroids.
Yeah, the circumstances are definitely there. He looked definitely a little bit bigger than he probably should have after a 4-week hiatus.
Yeah,
that's for sure. And it wasn't all attributed to training, because I mean he didn't look right.
He just looked awful. You know who looked great was Kaepernick in San Francisco. They look like they're the only team left that can run the ball and run the ball effectively. Every time they needed to move the ball, Kaepernick ran it or Gore ran it. Everybody on that team, they just have a good offensive line that can run block.
Yep. Yeah, and Kaepernick's not the best thrower in the league. His threat is in his legs.
Yeah.
And granted, he does get the job done with his arm more often than not. I'll give him that. But you have Kaepernick and you have Gore who you have to count for on that defense, and that takes away 2 of your coverage guys right there. So it really, any defense that's going to look at them is going to have an issue trying to cover both of them.
Yeah, I mean, they're in their bye week this week, so they can get healthy and maybe get back Manningham, and then they'd have Bolden and Manningham, and get Vernon Davis a little healthier.
Yeah, maybe the wide receivers, of course, will make Kaepernick's arm look a little better, too.
And, I mean, Seattle's looking good, too. You can't knock what Seattle's doing, and they did lose Sidney Rice, but they're getting Percy Harvin back, and that's an upgrade.
Absolutely. I mean, and, Russell Wilson, I mean, he's another one of those dual threat guys. You take a look, he can run, he's smart with his decisions, though. He throws when he has the opportunity, but he also runs when he has the opportunity, and it's another one of those San Francisco type situations where you have to cover both him, Marshawn Lynch, and then you got Percy Harvin coming back, and he's a game changer. He hasn't been in the past.
They've just been able. Golden Tate killed it this week for them. So I mean, Seattle's just. It looks like they're them and the Niners right now.
Yeah, that NFC West is shaping out. It's exactly like that. I don't see anybody really putting a candle to either of those two in that division. It'll be interesting to see if Seattle can come as the underdog and take that top spot away from San Francisco, though.
And let's be honest now, none of the AFC contenders are as good, I think, as Seattle or San Francisco.
Yeah, I can't really argue with that.
I mean, from just looking at how they've been playing, and just those defenses are just so much better than, Kansas City's the top defense, but they don't have anything on offense like Seattle or San Francisco does.
Right.
And Denver's got a great offense, but their defense leaves a lot to be desired. So those are the most well-rounded teams are sitting in the NFC.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. I really can't.
The NFC. I mean, that's what I'm looking at. So your Lions are in for a tough road.
Absolutely. No one said it would make it easy, but going back to the Lions, though, they have their next 8 games. 2 of them are against teams with winning records. And the next 4 are all against teams with losing records, including the Bears after the bye week, and then they got the Steelers. So
they got the Bears, who can't stop anybody anymore. For whatever reason, their defense has just turned into mush. The Steelers have an average defense and a below-average offense. They've not been a threat at all since they lost. Everybody from their offensive line got hurt, it seemed like, at one time.
Yep.
And then they're playing that awful Tampa Bay team.
Yeah, there's another quarterback situation.
Oh, God, it's not even a situation. Shiano just needs to be fired. That's not a quarterback problem. That's a coaching problem.
That whole team is a situation, yeah, absolutely.
Well, I wouldn't mind if I was a coach that was friends with a good quarterback. You could bring in a coach and a quarterback and drop them into that Tampa team, and they're automatically a contender. That's a team where if you brought in Roethlisberger and Bill Cowher, they would instantly be a contender.
Yeah,
instantly.
I can't really.
With who's there, with Vincent Jackson and Darrelle Revis and everybody, all the pieces that are there, they'd instantly be a playoff team.
The other thing to watch out for when the Lions do go to Tampa is the Calvin Johnson versus Darrelle Revis effect. Get Calvin Johnson on Revis Island and see, basically who comes out on top in that. And that will make or break that game for the Lions. If they can keep Calvin Johnson involved, it'll be an easy win. And if Revis can shut him down, then the Lions have to rely on their other receivers.
If Schiano's still the coach, I wouldn't worry a thing about it. It looked like the team has just stopped playing for him.
Yeah.
So you won't be sweating that much. Then you got Green Bay, and then you got Philly. Just a bad Philly team.
Yep.
Tough game against Baltimore because the Ravens still are a decent team.
That would be a national game. Monday night.
That's a Monday nighter. Then you got the G-Men, who by then could be back in contention.
It's very possible. I mean, the Giants, they do this every year. They walk into the middle of the season and everybody sleeps on them, and then they come and start and get in the wild card spot. And they very well even could take this division. Only 2 games out of first place, folks.
Yeah, they're on a bye week, and then they come back and play Oakland.
Yeah. Manning hasn't been very efficient this year. That's no secret. But I think Eli has a chance to possibly recover this season for the G-Men.
Well, the thing is, Manning's been so bad, he's going to have some regression back to the mean, which means he's going to be better. He's not going to turn the ball over as much. He's just not that bad a quarterback.
He really isn't. He's not as bad as he's been playing, that's for sure.
Yeah, so when you see something like that, unless there's an injury, you just think that, eventually the cards are going to start running his way. The bounces are going to start going his way. So you're going to see some games like this Green Bay game. If I'm Green Bay, and they don't have Randall Cobb back, and they've still got the injuries, I'm a little worried about that. Dallas is never comfortable playing the Giants. The Redskins are, I think, laughable. I think everybody's just beating them. And then they got a tough game against San Diego. Then they got Seattle. Then they got Detroit. So the Giants don't have an easy road anyway.
No, they don't. And going back to that Dallas thing, Cowboys after this last Sunday, they don't really look comfortable playing anybody at this point. So
they're playing Minnesota. They're going to look very comfortable this week.
Yeah, there's that. But I just think overall, it's just the demeanor, the mindset of that team has got to be a little bit flopping right now. They had a win. They snatched defeat out of the jaws of victory in Detroit. They really did. Wow. My Lions should have lost that game, and Matt Stafford just fake spike, really. So we'll take it. That's for sure.
Oh, he got away with a beautiful one, that one.
Oh, I love when a good trick play works. That's always especially being a Pats fan. It's always been one of the signatures of Belichick, and even going back to like Parcells and stuff.
Yep.
And they will pull that out of their hat. So
what makes me laugh about the whole Stafford situation and the fake spike at the end of the game is that if it doesn't work, he looks like a complete tool.
Oh yeah, it was all or nothing. That was literally it. He was like, "This has to work, or I'm screwed."
Yeah, and the thing is, he wasn't thinking that when it happened. I can guarantee you that he was in game flow. He wasn't thinking about any of that. But I mean, you look back on it afterwards and say, "Oh man, that could have gone really south really quickly."
I think it took a lot of courage. I think that is in your head as a quarterback in the NFL when you're calling, a trick play like that, because they always look bad when those things, when you run the flea flicker or a fake kick or whatever, and it doesn't work, it always looks bad. So I think it took some real courage and just like gumption and drive to win to dial that up and take a shot there. I applaud it. I think it was a great move, and
it was. I have no arguments there. Stafford showed the clutch gene, which we've seen a couple of times from him in the past, but
we have.
It's nice to see it.
It's also been somewhat questionable at times. There's been other times where you look at him and say, "Well, what's going on, buddy?" Like, some of the decisions he makes, you can't help but question him. But he made the right one there.
My favorite was when he missed. He thought he may have missed the first time, so he ran it back in the second time while they were still standing around. He made sure he got the touchdown.
And it was funny because you take a look at the linebackers during that play, and the linebackers are just looking around like, what is going on? That was supposed to be a spike. And they just looked like someone just slapped them in the face. It was very, very satisfying to watch the Cowboys lose this week.
Well, everybody likes when the Cowboys lose. I don't know. I have a few friends that are Cowboys fans, but Everybody else likes to see the Cowboys lose. Nobody says, well, they're my second team or they're my third. No, nobody ever says that about the Cowboys. It's either love or hate.
Yep.
And as a Steeler fan, I hate.
Yeah, they're kind of like the Yankees in baseball.
Well, there was a time when Cowboys fans were everywhere, but in the last decade or so, that's really disappeared. I think all the hardcore Cowboys fans are all just in Texas now, and their fandom, throughout the rest of the United States may have waned a bit.
Well, unless you're geographically tied to a team.
Yeah.
The Cowboys, I always say, when a person first looks up and starts watching football, if they don't have a geographic love of a team, they're going to look up and just root for. They're just going to latch onto the best team that's there possible.
That was the Cowboys for a long time.
And the Cowboys, if you look at it, they picked up a ton of fans in the 70s when they were good.
Yep.
They weren't as good in the 80s, so they didn't pick up too much. Then they had that resurgence with Aikman and Emmitt Smith. So you see a lot of people that are, what do you say, about 30, like 25, 30 years old, that are all Cowboy fans, because that's when I call it graduating into sports fandom.
Yeah, everybody in my junior high school had their Cowboys, starter jacket or a jersey or a hat. There were no Patriots fans in 1993 in Western Massachusetts or anywhere, really.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
So people just adopted the Cowboys, and they just haven't been adoptable lately. You see a lot of pink hat Pats fans, I call them. And then really, who else has been adopted? Indianapolis. You see some Colts fans.
Yep. Yeah. You take a look. Let's venture out of the States for a second and look at our northern neighbors, Canada. There's a lot of Canadian citizens that when they pick up teams in the NFL, they just go by basically who they go with. I've got a 49ers fan in Canada. I've got a Falcons fan in Canada. And, it's just, I don't know if it's preference. I don't know what makes them decide to adopt these teams, but you're right. They were, for a while, they're adopting the Cowboys as the.
Well, I think they get more of they're getting more of the national mainstream perspective. Those fans probably aren't going out and reading a lot of local coverage of different teams and stuff. So whatever teams are perennial favorites to be hyped up on ESPN and on the other major networks, I think,
right.
Those fans are going to come from whatever that is, whoever they're hyping at any moment.
Right. It's the same general idea as like I said earlier, the Yankees. They get a lot of national attention, and then people just kind of glue to them who don't necessarily have a geographic loyalty.
Well, same with the paid. People are sick of hearing about a lot of teams. They're sick of hearing about anything. They hated hearing about the Yankees all the time. They hate hearing about certain players all the time, like enough Tebow coverage, enough Brett Favre coverage. Every time somebody went to the bathroom, they were covering certain people.
Yeah. Yep. That's exactly right. And it's funny how much attention that Tebow got because, and even after he was released, because, he's unemployed.
He's going to make a great Republican congressman one day. And that's it. He's destined to be the congressman that represents the district where the University of Florida is.
There you go. Yeah, that's basically the only real loyalty that has left to him is that University of Florida community.
Yeah, he'll do just fine. He'll go down there. He'll be fine.
Absolutely.
I'm not really worried about it. He'll either be the Reverend Tim Tebow or Congressman Tim Tebow. He'll be one of the two.
Or both.
If not, I think I'd like to see him turn heel and become porn producer Tim Tebow. That would be more amusing than anything else.
New position, the Tebow.
Speaking of heels, let's talk about David Ortiz.
Oh, all right.
And the Red Sox. They're playing the Cardinals tonight.
Yes, absolutely.
In what could be the deciding game of the World Series.
Ultimately, I think Boston needs to put it away tonight. I think if they let it get to a Game 7, I don't see them winning the series.
Because they don't have anybody left to pitch?
There's that, and I think the clutch gene of the Cardinals that they've proved in the past with the veterans they've got on that team. You got Holiday. You got a few of the young guys who really don't know the magnitude of what they're in yet. You don't really know what the rookies are going to bring until they get there.
Well, you got Mr. Waka Flocka.
Yep.
Pitching tonight.
He's going tonight. He's been clutch this postseason. He's been really good.
Ortiz still nailed him. Is David Ortiz a Hall of Famer?
I think so. I think so. I think they're really, and I know there's the steroid cloud looming above his head, but I really think they don't have anything positive on him. And I know it's a court of public opinion. I get that. But just the way he goes about his business and the way he's performed even after the steroids have been, not long gone because they're still there, but after the steroid era is over, I really think that he gets in with, he had the World Series ring in 2004. He had another one, and then he has the possibility of eating a World Series ring this year, and then the MVP is very possibly in his future as well. So
he's going to win the World Series MVP, especially if they win tonight. He's definitely going to wrap that up.
Yep.
He's been clutch in a lot of games for the Red Sox, just regular season games, playoff games. Every time they've needed somebody to come through big, it seems to have been this guy. And if he's not elected to the Hall of Fame, it's going to be a travesty, to be honest with you. I think he totally belongs there. And as a DH, that's going to be what holds him back, I think. It's going to be not the steroids, not anything else, the fact that the D and the H are by his name.
Yeah, I can't really argue with that. He doesn't play a defensive position in most cases. And again, that is because of the designated hitter. I mean, he is playing first base tonight, from what I understand.
Well, they need him in the lineup.
Boston. Or, no, I'm sorry. That was
in Boston. That was when he was in St. Louis. He had to play.
Yeah, he was playing first base in St. Louis, and he didn't look bad. He did the job. He knows how to play the position.
Oh, he hasn't forgot how to play first base. That's what he learned to play when he was coming up.
Yep.
So you don't forget how to catch the ball.
Yeah, that's for sure.
He's just never been an agile fielder.
Yeah, he hasn't been an agile anything, to be completely honest.
Hey, when you see him slide, it's always an adventure.
Yeah, exactly. It's an adventure for everyone.
So let's get the pulse of Red Sox Nation. Joe Smarch.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you, Chris, about St. Louis being more clutch than the Red Sox. I think we've seen situations in this series and in the past where they have just broken down, and certainly the Red Sox have made mistakes as well, and there's been some managerial decisions in some of these games you can question. But when I see Adam Wainwright out there pitching around Stephen Drew, I don't, that's not clutch. Like, go get that guy. It's Stephen Drew.
Yeah.
Strike him out. What are you doing? Like,
I'll agree with that.
And the Red Sox have had some of these moments as well, but when you add them all up, I think the Sox in, the sort of intangible qualities add up slightly more in favor of the Red Sox. And I had picked them to win in 7. But I do agree that it would be, it would be ideal to close it out tonight. And, if you let them play on, then there is a chance you could lose the series. But I still put the Red Sox slightly ahead, at home or on the road in this series.
Okay. Well, I still think if the Red Sox don't get it going tonight, it'll be a knock 'em out, drag 'em out game either way.
Oh, it'll be, yes. And the series will get much uglier at that point.
Every pitch has meant something in this series. It's been a fantastic series to watch.
It pains me to say this, but I think John Lackey comes through huge tonight, and the Red Sox win. It pains me as a Yankee fan to say this, but I think John Lackey comes through tonight big. I think he's been setting himself up all year for this moment. He's kept himself in great shape. He's kept his mouth shut. He said all the right things. This is the John Lackey redeeming moment right here.
I can't help but agree with you there. I don't think it'll be John Lackey being the deciding factor. I think he'll pitch well. I think the Red Sox do close it out, and they do get their World Series ring tonight. I think David Ortiz is again going to show why he's a Hall of Famer. I'm predicting he'll go deep tonight off of Waka.
There you go. Did you watch any basketball last night?
A little bit.
The Lakers with no Kobe Bryant, with Pau Gasol and Steve Nash sitting on the bench, their whole starting 5 sitting on the bench for the last 15 minutes of the game, defeated the Clippers handily, just buried them with guys like Xavier Henry, Jody Meeks, and Jordan Hill. It was like the second team NCAA All-Star team from 3 years ago.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The Clippers just did not show up to that game, and knowing how Doc Rivers is, he'll have the ship straight pretty quickly, because if not, then there's gonna be a mutiny as far as Clipper Nation goes. But as far as LA, the Lakers go, I think it's kind of a toss-up for me, because I think they can be good without Kobe Bryant, but Steve Nash has to take control of that team.
Well, he didn't even do that last night.
I know he did.
Last night it was like D'Antoni ran a trick play. That's what I think the whole thing was. He went out there and he did something that nobody expected him to do, and he just kept doing it. Doc Rivers kept his starters on the bench for longer than he expected to, because he was waiting for D'Antoni to put his starters back in so Doc could put his starters back in, and it never happened. They were in this weird little standoff. So you had Jordan Crawford and the backups, along with DeAndre Jordan, who's not as good. You know, he's not an all-around player. He can block some shots and dunk, but he's not.
Yeah.
He's not a beast. He can't stop a simple pick and roll.
Can't really blame D'Antoni for it, though. It's you take a look at it. If what you have on the court is working, why change it?
It was amazing to watch. I'm sitting there and I'm like, are you kidding me? Did he just pull this off?
It really was. It was funny. It was really funny to me, because at some point Doc Rivers has to put his starters back in. There's no doubt about that. If the second team is lighting you up as bad as they were getting lit up, then you have to put your starters back in and put the fire out. And just play the who's on the court game. And they didn't do that.
And he stuck with guys that he should have benched, like Jared Dudley, who was clanging threes, three after three after three. And he kept Jordan Crawford on the bench, who was hot and actually hitting threes.
Yep.
It was just a badly coached game by Doc.
Yep. And we'll see if I think ultimately he'll right the ship, though. I think the Clippers, I want to say they'll still get into the playoffs. I think they'll probably be a lower seed. I think they'll probably get to the 6th seed, is what I'm predicting them to be overall on the season. And the Lakers, if they continue what they did last night with their second team, and if they can get their first team rolling, Lakers could be back. We'll see.
Well, I don't know if they're going to keep those trick plays going, but it was fun to watch that last night.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was just awful was everybody, I think, likes Derrick Rose. They had this whole hype campaign. He's coming back.
Yep.
He's coming back for vengeance. Look out, Miami. Miami just took him out to the middle of the court last night and bent him over and spanked him.
They did. It was an execution style, just complete clinic that.
Yeah, and they didn't even. No one player dominated for them. Shane Battier was making running layups and all sorts of wacky stuff was happening, and I'm like, this is. And all the 3-point shots. Ray Allen was they made the joke, is Ray Allen ever going to miss from that spot, the same one he hit in that San Antonio game last year?
Yeah, I remember.
He hit like 2 more from that spot last night.
Doesn't surprise me. Ray Allen's Ray Allen. That's what he does.
And Miami just looks ready to destroy the world again. And now you have to reevaluate all your preseason prognostication, because you watched Derrick Rose not have another offensive option. You watched Miami shut him down pretty handily.
Yep.
And it doesn't look like Chicago's going to have an answer for this amazing Heat team.
Well, and I've been saying this since before Rose went out. If Rose were to go out, where would Chicago go? You shut down Rose, you shut down the Bulls.
There you go.
And that's as easy as there is to it. I don't know how easy per se, but that's all there is to it. You shut down Rose, you shut down the Bulls. You have the Heat team, who has 3 weapons. At least, if not more. You have, of course, Wade, Bosh, James, and then all everybody on their bench can contribute.
The 3-pointer triumph that they got that goes out there.
That first half 3-point surge that went on is it already put that game away right before halftime.
It was a clinic. They were getting the ball down low. They had Wade posting up. They had LeBron posting up, Bosh posting up, and they were just kicking the ball out. Hey, everybody take your jump shots. Have fun.
Bulls had no answer.
They had nothing, and this was a team that was the Bulls were at full strength. Mm-hmm. This is it. Jimmy Butler was there. Luol Deng was there. Boozer, Joakim Noah. The whole team was there. And at full strength, that's just scary. Now the only team left on the radar that I think has a sleeper chance at giving the Heat any problems this year is Brooklyn. I think after hearing everything that's come out of the mouths of Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett, they're ready to make another run. They're gonna drag this lethargic Darren Williams, Joe Johnson tandem and they're going to drag them into a championship like they dragged Rondo and them with the Celtics.
I can't argue with that. And for whatever reason, it's a Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett against Ray Allen thing. Then the Heat are backing up Ray Allen, of course, and it's going to make for an interesting playoff matchup.
I can't wait.
Probably what's going to be the Eastern Conference Final matchup.
I'm looking forward to every game between Brooklyn and the Heat.
Absolutely,
it's going to be awesome.
Yep, it's going to be good basketball to watch.
Well, Chris, you've been an excellent signing. This was a good show.
Yes, show's been great so far.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there anything? Do you have any other topics like just that we haven't necessarily gotten to that you really want?
Well, talking about the Eastern Conference, going back there for the NBA, take a look at the Pistons. There's GMs around the league that are talking that the Pistons are going to be the most improved team in the East. And personally, I can see where they're thinking that. There's one variable that is thrown in here is the fact that they did not offer, or they didn't put an extension on the table as of yet to Greg Monroe. They're a big man. They're 10th pick in the draft a couple years ago. They have until Halloween to do so, but I really don't see that happening. And he's a restricted free agent come summertime. He could be used as a trade chip.
And I think that's Joe Dumars' plan. They have a logjam underneath with Josh Smith and Andre Drummond.
Yep.
And depending on how Drummond has developed, you're likely to see Monroe shopped, and it should be for a shooter, not like the Rondo talk is done now that they have Jennings.
Yeah.
So they should be looking for a 3-point shooter because they don't have one right now.
I'll agree with that. I mean, the biggest shot that they have from out deep is Chauncey, and he's more than likely going to be coming off the bench.
And he's not a reliable shooting guard. And the kid they drafted, Caldwell Pope, has not shown that he's ready. So they don't really have a guy that can hit jumpers on a regular basis, and that's going to hurt a team that has guys that play very well with their back to the basket in Drummond and Smith and Monroe.
Yep. I can't argue that. It'll be interesting to see when the Greg Monroe shopping happens, but I think the writing's on the wall. In that case, and the thing is, the other big underrated signing this year in the offseason was definitely Chauncey. Bringing him back is definitely it's a godsend to this Pistons team and the young guys that are on it. You take a look at Jennings. He's going to be mentoring Jennings into a all-around NBA player. Chauncey's clutch in that way. He's Mr. Big Shot.
Hopefully he really can mentor Jennings because Jennings has a huge amount of talent that it just needs to be molded and shaped. And it's the same with Drummond. You know who they have mentoring Drummond? Rasheed Wallace.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing is you have Rasheed in the assistant coach's role. And it kind of creates a little personality for this team, which I think is what they need. They need to try to find out, who they are and what they're going to fight for. And Rasheed will help with that, I have a feeling.
Listen, they're a team that I'm going to watch anytime I have a chance to watch them.
Yep, and being in the market, I'll love every bit of it. I'll be doing some of the Pistons games come later in the season on Michigan Sports Beat, doing the audio alternate cast. So we'll see.
Oh, then that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, if they get national, then I'll definitely do one with you guys if you guys want. So we'll go over that later, though.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Anybody else stand out in the NBA? We did our preview last week.
Right.
And, anybody else that you think can challenge the Heat?
Challenge the Heat? If anyone's going to do it, I think...
That's it. Because it all comes down to who can beat the Heat.
It really is.
Everything else is just a waste of time to talk about.
It absolutely is. I think if anyone has a shot in the West, it'll probably be the Spurs again.
The Spurs. They kind of stood pat. And they said, all right, we got a good team. We're going to move Kawhi and Danny Green to the starting lineup, and Manu's going to ride Pine, and we're going to keep limiting Robinson's minutes throughout the season so we can get not Robinson. Oh, wow, I said David Robinson.
Wow, yeah, old school LJ, going old school there.
Tim Duncan,
yeah,
right.
And they're going to limit Duncan's minutes again, and they're going to do what they did last year. It was
2005 called. They want the retiree back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
This is a team that I don't know, but then everybody's questioning the ability to come back from that punch they took last year. Because they won. They had literally won the championship.
Yep.
And because he had Duncan on the bench, he wasn't able to get the rebound to finish the game.
Yep, I agree. But you take I've learned not to question Greg Popovich. He's very short-answered, but I really think that ultimately the Spurs will be fine. They'll be back where they need to be, and they'll be back where they are every single year.
Well, everybody's writing it off as Popovich's bad day. Everybody has a bad day.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what you do. You write it off as a bad day.
And you go about your business the next day. Yep, that's exactly right.
Now, what do you think about the Rockets? The Rockets are my team that I'm like thinking, all right, this is James Harden. James Harden's ready to go another level. With another, they're going. Jeremy Lin's riding pine now. They went with a true point guard with Peverly.
Yep.
So, are the Rockets ready to take to make the jump?
It's all going to come down to Dwight Howard. If Dwight Howard can be the dominant force that we saw him as in Orlando, Houston will be fine. But if we see the Lakers version of Dwight Howard, then it's going to be a long season in Houston. I think it all comes down to the big men, because if they have nothing to match up with size-wise, other than Howard, say Howard goes down, Howard has an off season.
Well, they have Ashik. Ashik did it for them last year, but the Ashik piece is going to probably end up traded. And the most intriguing trade that anybody floated out there is trading him to the Pelicans. Yes, the Pelicans. To the Pelicans for Ryan Anderson, and then reuniting Howard with Ryan Anderson and that amazing Orlando team that went on that run with all the three-point shooters. He'd basically be recreating that for him in Houston with James Harden and in the Jameer Nelson role.
But like I said, it's all going to come down to Dwight Howard. If Dwight Howard can be the Dwight Howard we've seen of old, then that very well could come into fruition. If it doesn't come into that, then I don't see Houston making a big splash come this year.
I still like him.
Yeah, okay.
I'm a fan. And I'm a big fan of Golden State, but they have way too many health issues for me to think they're any good.
Yep. Yeah, I'll agree with that.
Well, I think that's it for this week.
Yeah, that's going to wrap it up. If you've enjoyed Chris Curtis, and thank you for being on the show, you can catch Chris Curtis on Michigan Sports Beat, which you can find on Facebook. Just search Michigan Sports Beat. And we've also liked and linked to his Facebook page. And you can find us at Free Agents Podcast on Facebook, on Twitter, and on the internet at freeagentspodcast.com. So you can subscribe to us on iTunes and your Android device.